Okay, let's wait just a little bit to see if we can hear Porto. You can hear me right?
Hello, Lisbon.
Okay, now we're good.
Okay, hello. The sun here is super out. What about there?
Great, it's a little bit too toasty. Okay, great. I wanted to start by welcoming you either in Porto as well to our Above and Beyond Hangout. And of course, we start as usual with our ecosystem briefing. So a little bit of what's been happening, what's gonna happen. And so first and foremost, we have to tell you about our SIM conference. So it took place earlier this month, from the 2nd to the 4th of May in Alfândega do Porto, over there. So maybe some of these faces we can recognize from the SIM conference. It was a great event to connect startups and investors. So SIM stands exactly for that, startups and investment matching. We had over 2,000 people and more than 400 startups, about 150 investors, so a lot of connections, a lot of networking. It was a great event. And so, of course, we can't wait to do it all over again. So, well, stay tuned, because on the next Hangout, we'll be having more news, more updates about our SIM Conference 2025. Also, coming to a close is our Start Now, Cry Later program. Okay, so we've been walking around the country, visiting universities and polytechnics with the aim to inspire young people, to let them know about the ecosystem, the startup ecosystem, to let them know about entrepreneurship. And so there's more to come next year. So if you know any university that wants to host us, well, get in touch with us. Also, coming right up is Unicorn Factory Lisboa Innovation Summer School. It's a 2-week innovation and entrepreneurship program for Portuguese and international high school students. There will be 3 cohorts, but the first deadline is on June the 3rd, so it's best to hurry. If you know any high school students that want to know more about entrepreneurship, about startups, share it with them. Also by Unicorn Factory Lisboa, Clean Future is an acceleration program that over 10 weeks will support the development of technological solutions to improve the sustainability of the cities of the future. It focuses on 3 categories with the greatest impact in combating climate change. So construction, mobility, and retail. If this is the opportunity for you, make sure to apply before June the 9th. Also, Portugal Ventures has an open call titled WIT, Web3 Innovation in Tourism. It intends to invest in technology-based projects with a high growth potential, and which are at the forefront of Web3 innovation in tourism and hospitality. You should apply through their Ignition Partners network, so be on the lookout for this. And now, growing together, the role of incubation. That's what this Hangout is all about. As usual, our panel is divided between Porto and Lisboa. And we have here in Lisboa, we are welcoming Mike Siegel, founder of Siegel Ventures, Afonso Pinheiro, co-founder of Please, and Gil Azevedo, executive director at Unicorn Factory Lisboa. And in Porto, we have Maria Moura Oliveira, business director of UPTEC. Moderating the conversation, we have our own Marilia Santos, our very own incubator and accelerators booster. I would like to thank you all in advance. But first, before the discussion, we have 4 promising startups. Let's hear their pitch. And so we'll dig right in. I'll let João Moreira pitch. It's up to you.
Thank you so much, Zamaria. Hi, everyone. Hi, Madalena. How's everything there in Porto?
It's amazing. So the weather is super nice, the room is full of energy, and we are super ready for another hangout.
Great. Now, let's have you introduce the first startup. The first pitch is over there, please.
Exactly. So a big round of applause to Bruno Fernandes from Pluggable AI.
Hello, everyone. It's the ones with the video, right? Perfect. At Pluggable, what we do is we measure, we quantify, and we reward emotional engagement. This is Pulso de Guerreiro. It was an experience called Lunch by Sporting Clube Braga. And what we do is we identify the fans that are more engaged during the game, and we give rewards to those fans. What we are doing is, instead of having what everyone has, the man of the match, we have the fan of the match. So this is precisely what we do. We identify that guy, that person, the one that celebrated the game, that person receives a reward. It can be more than one person. We can give as many rewards as the club wants, or the festival, wherever. The goal is to bring people to the mobile app of the club. We have a technology that goes to the mobile app of our customers, and then to grow the revenue of the club, of the team, because they can sponsor the reward. So it can be the man of the match by, for example, Coca-Cola. For example, we use a revenue share business model where the club receives revenue from the sponsor, and we have a share of that revenue. We do this. As I said, we don't have a mobile app. We have an SDK, a software library that goes to the mobile apps of our customers. They include our technology. It makes use of non-intrusive sensors such as the accelerometer, the gyroscope, the proximity sensor, the magnetometer, a lot of sensors that are completely non-intrusive, that goes through our AI model, and then it quantifies the engagement of the person and automatically gives rewards to those winners. These, as I said, we have launched in the last 2 games of the season that has finished recently. We have also launched with Aplicação Cartão Continente, Sonai. They have a partnership with Liga Portugal. The app went trending. In last game against Sport, we had more than 1,000 participants. Against Casa Pia as well, we had a lot of participants. The app went trending. This is the raw data of the sensors that we collected. Just for one game of Prague, we collected more than 33 million records of data that went through our AI model. And here we can see some spikes. These were some of the goals of the club during that game. Of course, this can be applied to much more than football. We have launched this in football, mainly in football, but also in indoor games such as futsal and basketball. But we can also apply this to festivals. That's what we are doing now with Rock in Rio. So next June 15th, 16th, and then 23, 24th, we will be as well with Rock in Rio doing exactly the same thing. You have the app, you can opt in to participate or not, and you just need to party, to dance, to jump, to participate in the festival. And then in the end, you can receive amazing rewards that will be given by Rock in Rio. That's what we do. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Bruno. Now, here in Lisboa, I would like to welcome Mário Tarouca, co-founder of FrameDrop. Mário, give him an applause, please.
Where's the thing to pass? Okay. Hi everyone, how are you doing? So I'm just in chouriço, as we say here, right? All good in Porto? So guys, thank you so much. 3 minutes here. So my name is Mário Tarouca. I'm one of the co-founders of FrameDrop. And nowadays, it's not possible to use these kind of things. Is it on? Is it on? Yeah, it is. Okay. Now it's working. Otherwise, you can just click it when I say, yeah, it's working. Yeah, it's working. So guys, again, my name is Mário Tarouca. Sorry for this inconvenience. But nowadays, it's not only enough to create great content out there. So let's take an example of a podcast. It's not just enough to invite Sam Altman to your podcast and create a great episode. You actually need to promote it. And the way podcasts are doing this nowadays, it's basically using shorts. You might have seen this already if you consume like TikTok or Reels or other platforms. And the problem here is that it's not scalable. It takes time to create those. They do it manually. And of course, it takes a lot of money if you eventually outsource it to other people. So this is where FrameDrop.ai comes in. What we do, basically, we get like a long video, and through AI, we automatically find the best moments, and we turn them into clips. And then you can verticalize them, add some captions, everything automatically. And we not only do that, but we do that 12 times faster than a regular person doing that manually, and 20 times cheaper than outsourcing this to a freelancer. And so by the end of this year, it's expected to be more than 500 million podcast listeners. So you have an idea, this is 1 out of 10 internet users. And also, when it comes to podcast creations, there will be 4 million podcasts created this year. And 1.4 of them are from the US, so 1 out of 3 from the US. And by the way, not sure if you already saw this, but LinkedIn is creating already and deploying these TikTok lookalike videos, so short, like imagine TikTok or Reels. This is already happening on TikTok, on LinkedIn, sorry. So our business model is really simple. It's a SaaS, so we have a free version, and then people can upgrade it. And some numbers year to date, we launched and we integrated YouTube and talking content since January. Before that, we were only working on gaming, and we developed algorithms for games. And so this is where, in January, we started to grow and doubling month over month since we integrated with YouTube. So we processed, since the end of last month, April, more than 25,000 videos. Now it's still counting. And we converted 300 paying customers, again, doubling month over month. We already know how to acquire content creators and independent podcasters and YouTube creators. We are now going after media outlets, so we already closed some paid partnerships with the biggest radio station groups here in Portugal, and we have just been last week in the biggest podcast. It's actually called Podcast Show in London, and we also started some conversations with some radio stations and podcast producers there from mainly UK and the US. Our team, it's a 6-people team. We have already raised a pre-seed round from mainly Indico and Shilling VC, also with Banco Português do Fomento, in a value of 1.1 million. And so, just finishing, because the previous startup is going to be in Rock in Rio, and we are going to be there. So just fun fact, we are going to be there, so media and content creators can also use our technology to accelerate things to go on social media. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mari, for the great pitch. Now we continue here in Porto. Welcoming to the stage Maxim Menshikov with Interpretica.
Hello, I'm Maxim Menshikov, and I represent a startup called Interpretica. Actually, we are making static analysis tools to detect software defects in the source code. Basically, it's a huge market. It's a cybersecurity market, and we can see that basically all the endpoints are can be attacked by hackers. So that's what we have right now in the market. But in our mind, main threat comes not just from code, but also from architecture, from dependencies, and from operating systems. So what we do differently from other companies in that field is that we analyze all these pieces in one context, so that we find a lot more vulnerabilities and other tools do. This way, we can see that wrong behavior is not necessarily malicious, but when we find problems in the architecture, we can also remove these vulnerabilities. So we combine individual developer contributions, source code in different languages. We monitor releases. We check deployment results and mix it all together in one context, so we see real design problems. So we have one main product. It's a static analysis tool. It's basically a console application, so it's not really interesting for end user. The second product is a testing environment. It's used for many well-known companies in the world right now, but we want to put it further and put it to to a wider market. We have a third product, which is a web interface for all these products, providing controls and result analysis. Our business model is pretty simple. First of all, we sell licenses. It's a bit boring for us, but it's low effort as well. And the other interesting part is the tailor-made solutions. That means that we not only sell licenses, but we also help businesses get better results of our analysis. So we have one enterprise customer at our early stage already. We are negotiating deals with other customers, and we have a really big potential enterprise client. We have some legal issues right now, which are resolving. So, and as for investment, we would like to raise funds to shift from services plus product model to just enterprise licensing, to accelerate development and research and actually get to a wider market. Our team are 2 people actually. First of all, it's me. I'm a mathematician. I'm a cybersecurity researcher, and I'm focused on the actual development. And the second member of our team is Konstantin Ushakov. He is also a mathematician. We both have finished PhD programs, but we are Master of Sciences. But he is more concentrated on business development. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maxime. And now for our last pitch of the day, let's give your applause to Vasco Salema, founder and CEO of Gigsy.
Hi, and good afternoon to all. My name is Vasco, and I'm CEO and co-founder of Gigsy, a new stream. Sorry. Okay. So, Gigsy, the smartest solution for streamlining artist bookings. The current economy involving live entertainment is updated, and the way that people connect to artists is outdated. So, Gigsy, the industry is plagued by inefficiencies and frustrations. Clients spend countless hours looking and searching for the right talent, and artists struggles to find opportunities. Artists gaining visibility and securing consistent bookings is a uphill battle, with many struggle to break through the noise and connect with potential clients. The disconnect between artists and clients leads to missed opportunities, wasted resources, and a subpar event experience. At Gigsy, we understand this pain, and that's why we created a user-friendly platform that connects both artists and clients to this. Sorry, I'm a little bit nervous. So, this is the reason why me and my team created Gigsy. Gigsy is a user-friendly platform that connects clients with artists with innovative tools to streamline every aspect of the process, like direct booking, personalized requests for codes, customized calendar management, secure payments and automatic invoicing, a comprehensive dashboards for costs overview. Clients can hire the ideal artist with this, comparing profiles, reviews, and price in seconds. Artist gains a much-needed visibility, manage bookings effortlessly, and enjoy a steady stream of revenues and opportunities. Our current business model it relies on a 15% commissions per booking made. As our future plan, we intend to add a SaaS environment to our B2B clients, where they will use more metrics to select and hire the artists that will stimulate their business KPIs. So, the live entertainment industry is growing, and there is a great opportunity to conquer. rapidly our numbers. We launched our MVP this year in late February. We already have onboarded over 30 clients. We have more than 160 clients already onboarded as well, 89 with active gigs and ready to be booked. We have already made over 30 books with a GMV over 9,000 euros. Our team is composed by a diversity of profiles, from IT to marketing. My personal experience is managing artists and venues, and my co-founders is in business and finance. We are currently raising a pre-seed round of 300K to expand our team and our sales team, to increase our capacity to onboard more B2B clients and further develop our MVP, adding more features and functionalities that will provide a better experience for all our users. Gigsy enriches the live entertainment industry, making it accessible and diverse. We invite you to join us revolutionizing the way artists and clients connect, invest in Gigsy, and be part of the future of live entertainment. Sorry, I was a bit nervous, but...
Thank you, Vasco. Now that we've finished our pitches, we're having a very interesting discussion here with a panel discussion. So I would like to welcome to the stage Maria Oliveira from UPTEC and Marilia Santos from Startup Portugal. João, who do we have in Lisbon?
So, thank you, Madalena. Without further ado, please welcome on stage Mike Siegel, Afonso Pinheiro getting mic'd up, and Gil Azevedo from Unicorn Capital.
How you been? Very good. Just in time.
Okay, I think we are set. Thank you. Thank you all again for joining us today. It is my pleasure today to moderate this session. So I would like to start by acknowledge that Maria, Gil, Mike, and Afonso took the time to be here and share all their knowledge and expertise with us. So actually, to start the discussion, I would like to share some numbers with you. This is a study that normally I quote in this kind of sessions because for me, at least for me, it shows clearly the impact of incubators in growing business. So last year, PwC shared a study that showed that about 80% of all incubated companies remain active after 5 years of activity, while only about 40% of the no incubated companies remain active after this 5 years period, which means that the incubation doubles the success rate, basically. So business, when they are incubated, they have double the chance of success. Sorry. So having said that, I would like to start with Maria here in Porto and ask her about what is the stage of the incubation now in Portugal. So the ecosystem has around 15 years, more or less. So because of the financial crisis in 2008, a lot of companies and a lot of new business grew from there, and then incubators leveraged that, and a lot of them have arisen since then. So I would like to ask Maria here in Porto, what are the weaknesses and the strengths now of the ecosystem, the incubation ecosystem in Portugal?
Okay, thank you, Marilia. Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here, and hello to everybody as well in Lisbon. So 15 years, you said. So 15 years, it's also the age of UPTEC. I would say it's a little bit older because we consider ourselves to be quite young still in terms of the incubators in Portugal. So talking about what we provide or why do we exist, a science and technology park. And this means a mixture of two cultures. So large corporations that come closer to the University of Porto and stay in UPTEC, and as well as startups. And I would say that this mixture makes a very peculiar culture. First of all, we provide these connections. So connections between the startups and I would say larger companies, but also with investors, and most importantly, with the community. So whenever you enter an incubator, you enter a place where you will have like-minded people like yourselves supporting you during the journey. And I'm not sure about the entrepreneurs that already did this pitch, but for most people, starting a startup is difficult and it's lonely. So having this support community it's extremely important. Then also the events. It's an opportunity as well to connect, to learn, and to have more, I would say, collaboration opportunities with other entities. Talking about the ecosystem in Portugal, I would say that one good thing is that it's very decentralized. And this, to some extent, has democratized the access to startups in more remote areas, not the big cities like, let's say, Lisbon and Porto, to have access to support structures. And you said it, the survival rate after 5 years of incubation tends to be higher. Although I'm not sure if this data compares equally across different countries. Now, talking about, I would say, the challenges that the incubators have. One of them, I talked about decentralized system, but not all incubators, I would say, some of them are fragmented in the sense that they don't have the critical mass or resources to be sustainable. They are too small. And being too small means also that they cannot build a larger community of support, or sometimes they don't have the resources to continue to do this type of activity. And this, I would say, undermines some opportunities of collaboration. So partnering is quite important. In the ecosystem as well in Portugal, we don't have a lot of what's called vertical incubators, so specific incubators catering for a sector. And in some sectors, let's take biotech or the medical devices, it's extremely important to have this specific support, even because most of the companies will need, I would say, a bench lab or equipment that most incubators don't have. So they need to rely with access to universities or to some labs. And then finally, I think that in Portugal, being a small country, we still lack a lot of what's called the later stages of support, so the scaling up process. We don't have enough international accelerators operating in Portugal, like the 500. We had Techstars, now I think we have it again, which is good. But still, there's a need to do this better connection, I would say, with mentors and investors later on in the process.
Yeah, great. Actually, you mentioned a lot of questions that I have here prepared, so we will go there deeply, I guess. So I don't know if in Lisbon you would like to add something. I don't know, Mike, Jill, would like to add something? Otherwise, I will keep going with the questions.
I think I'll hold for next question.
Go ahead. Okay. So, Mike, actually, next question that I have prepared is for you. I would like to ask you, you basically have been a key player in Silicon Valley, okay? So the biggest or the most developed ecosystem in the whole world. You came to Portugal, and I dare to say that you've brought a fresh look upon the ecosystem, the Portuguese ecosystem. And I would like to ask you this. So in Portugal, we don't have incubators operating with the equity model like in the US. So would you think that this is desirable for the ecosystem in Portugal? It is not? If yes, what do you think we should do?
Let me start off by commenting on something Maria just said, which is about the role of incubators, right? I came from Silicon Valley, and really I lived in a 100 square mile incubator, right? And the idea that every person I met, and obviously this evolved over the years, were exactly the same kind of crazy that I was wonderful. Like, forget about any support, any services, anything else. Like, just the fact that I could turn to someone who understood what I was going through and had the same problem telling their mother what I was going through, right? That kind of thing. So that's a tremendous role of an incubator. And you often find incubators in ecosystems which are not yet well developed. It's possible that over time incubators begin to go away as the ecosystem starts functioning very well. Now, all that said, I think your question is it's presenting a false choice. An incubator that doesn't take equity is a service provider, and that's it. An incubator that takes equity is an investor, and that's it. And never mistake the two. And I'll focus in on the question of the ones that do take equity. What you need to recognize is that once your organization is an incubator, or if you're the entrepreneur and you give some equity in exchange for being involved with the incubator, that incubator is on your cap table. And every investor that ever considers writing a check to you wants to know, first of all, why did you as a founder give this real estate organizer part of your equity? And there's got to be a really good reason. And by the same token, on the incubator side, you're now having conversations with other investors about increasing the value of the equity in your companies. And if you ever branch into that weird, like, yeah, but we didn't quite decide to do that because we really needed the revenue from the real estate, like instantly you're no longer credible. So there's a role for both, but don't mistake you can never cross over the two business models. It's just like, you know, a startup that has product revenue and a startup that has service revenue, and a VC will never give you any credit for your service revenue, only your product revenue. So is it bad that Portugal doesn't have incubators that take equity? No, it's not. But is it, you know, possibly bad that there's not enough early stage equity in the ecosystem overall? Probably. Sorry, long-winded.
No, thank you. And I really appreciate that you said that so clearly, because actually, at least I have this impression that it's a hot topic now in the ecosystem, and that it's really nice that you said that so clearly. Okay, so Afonso, so you are a medical doctor. Basically, you turn a serial entrepreneur. So I would like to ask you, basically, if you could explain how was your journey until now, and what is Please, and how an incubator helped you in your ventures, basically.
Well, it's the first time that someone says I'm a serial entrepreneur, so thanks a lot. Well, basically my journey, I usually divide this in like three main periods. When I was studying medicine, then after medicine I worked at McKinsey, and then after McKinsey I basically became an operator. And the first company that I've been involved was at PowerDot, where I was basically employee number one. And I had the chance basically to grow the company in Europe in several markets. And was also during this period that I founded my first company that's also that is called Import Trust in the used car space. And then I eventually left PowerDot to launch and build Please full-time. That's what I'm doing at the moment. And the truth is, and that's why I think you are calling me a serial entrepreneur, is during these periods I also launched some other businesses, and nowadays more like I'm not only like working at Please and launching Please, but I also have like a personal investing umbrella or whatever that is called Stake Ventures, where we basically build and invest in companies that are disrupting industrial or traditional industries, right? So more like a pre-PE business model, more than a VC itself model, right? And actually, some of the things that we are using at Stake Ventures and that we are doing with the companies that we have the chance to work with is actually some incubation, right? So we really help companies, and since we are investors, it means that we really get operational and we really help on daily challenges that the companies have, right? And so I would say that looking at the ecosystem and in Portugal, and also based on my experience, I would basically say that incubation is something that is really important. It can really unlock some value, but it's really important also to understand the type of incubation, right? I found it really interesting the way that you divide it, because actually in my mind I usually divide this in what I call like high level incubation and operational incubation, right? And actually like high level would be more like service providers or programs, for example, that we have with Unicorn Factory and everything, where basically you have someone that is helping you high level with certain topics, but then they don't have the capacity to go in depth. And at least, for example, this played a key role for us to join the ecosystem, to start knowing people, to get into the community, to know the people that brought me here today. And so I think that incubation played a really important role in networking and also in basically being inspired by others, right? And then also, like in the other companies, that what I'm seeing is that incubation, when it's done with equity, can really become operational, can really have an impact on like daily tasks, daily challenges. And so I would say that definitely incubation can be really, really great for companies if done well and if both parties understand the different models that exist and what's the business model or the partnership model that they are using in this specific incubation.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your experience. Okay, so now, Gilles, actually I will ask you something that Maria talked about, that is the fact that there are some incubators that are specific, so vertical specific. And my question is, do you think that should be the path? Like, should we have more vertical specific incubators in Portugal? I will dare to say that you'll say yes. So if you say yes, could you give us, I don't know, 2 or 3 steps that we should all work on to make that happen? For example, should we have an agrotech incubator in Alentejo, for example? Should we leverage the regions and develop incubators that leverage those regions?
Thank you for inviting as well. And then starting where Maria left, I think that I would say that we are in the second phase of this ecosystem. So the first phase was a phase that was mostly early stage, and where the incubators and the hubs and so on were mostly geared towards early stage startups, giving the mentorship, giving access to investors, having the community, and that was very helpful to create a significant base of early stage startups. But the fact is, given that the market is small, very quickly in Portugal, these startups reach their limit in terms of growth. And then the next step is to grow abroad, which somehow ends up being obviously a barrier. It's not all the businesses are able to raise the funds and have the ambition to go this next step. So over the last 10, 15 years, Portugal was able to start creating this large pool of early stage startups, but not necessarily the scale-ups that also Maria was mentioning. Once we start entering the second phase, and when we want to start having scale-ups at a relevant number as well, start creating a community of scale-ups, not being just 1 or 2 here and there, this is where the verticalization can play an important role. Together with scaling up programs, and that's what we tried to do at the Unicorn Factory Lisboa, which is at that moment starting to having specialized support becomes more important. So being it in terms of the growth stage, but also, and linking to the question about specific sectors. I think by having an incubator or a hub that is about a specific sector, and we have a few, so FinTech House has been around for a long time, more focused on the early stage as well, but it's a vertical incubator. That has allowed to bring partners that are specifically connected with that vertical, allows to bring investors that are also with the thesis around that vertical, talent, startups, and then the community all talk the same vertical language. And this is what we saw in other countries. So when we started looking at what would be the best practices for us to start setting up this scaling up community, if we look at countries that have roughly our size or around our size, all of them became very strong in specific verticals rather than very strong across the board. Because at the end of the day, we don't have the scale of Berlin and Germany or UK and London to be great on everything. So we will always have startups that will be great regardless, but in order to give them specific support, having this vertical approach is very helpful. I'll give a couple of examples. For instance, in Singapore, FinTech is a very strong hub. In Dubai, the same. If we look at Israel, which historically has been called the startup nation, they had the food tech, they had the defense, the cybersecurity as areas that were verticalized. Typically, this happens in verticals where there is already some scale or there is enough critical mass for the players around it to connect, either by necessity, which in the case, for instance, of Israel, it was the case in terms of security and so on, or there are enough players in the market that makes it a strong vertical to have high potential. So in our case, we launched our first vertical hub in December, which was in the gaming area, and that was very successful. We launched it 2 weeks ago, a Web3 hub. We are going to launch, we are working on a deep tech AI hub as well. So the goal is really to bring 4 types of players all together in terms of startups, investors, companies, and the academic world together, and with this create a scale that otherwise would be not possible. And the challenge now for us is that at the end of the day, Portugal is a small country, so we cannot now start creating vertical hubs across the country, competing and trying not to work. So now the challenge for us and for persons like me, like Maria and so on, is how can we collaborate and how can we join forces to do what you're saying. So probably Agrotech Hub probably should be where there are clients on agro. If we look at gaming, we need to look where the gaming studios are. So rather than trying to replicate, because then we are all going to be subscale.
Can you hear? Oh, okay, now it's on. Jill, yeah, thank you for that, because actually I would like to ask Maria now about collaboration, and you just mentioned that. I also agree that we should collaborate much more, and Maria just said that in the beginning too, but how can you do that? Like, should we collaborate in which terms, like between which, between districts? How can you explain further what you think about that?
Well, I think that this was mentioned already by Gilles. We are a very small country, and this means that for the number of incubators we have, I would say collaboration is essential, and not only within the specific cluster or a region. And this happens already, I would say, quite naturally. We already have startups that are incubated at UPTech that also are incubated in other places, like EPN or Build Up Labs. So this happens because they are looking for different resources that they believe they will find there, but also specifically for some type of mentors or investors. And I would say that's one way to go. We should share more in terms of pool of mentors. We should share more in terms of continuity of programs. That's too much, I would say, early stage programs for the amount of startups that we have right now in the ecosystem. And of course, we can think about this a little bit like the model that we have in the gyms, which we have a subscription, but we can attend different places. So why not the same with co-working spaces or meeting rooms? Why can't we have this wider network in which if a company of Porto, of UPTech wants to do some meetings in Lisbon and stay there for a while, we would have support. Jill, this is an invitation to you from Startup Lisboa, so they could be based there for a week, for instance, and the other way around. So yes, collaboration, I would say it's essential, but in order for us to collaborate, we first need to know each other and trust each other. And that's essential. And I would say this was not ordered by Startup Portugal, but the RNI is doing a tremendous work in terms of getting the incubators together to discuss best practices, to understand a little bit what are the common challenges, like in some cases lack of funding or unable to be sustainable over time. And this is essential for us to build stronger models. I would say also that sometimes government could have some type of incentives, because we have the incubation vouchers, but there was no collaborative incubation voucher. And this could be, while we can only support you if you do a consortium of at least, I would say, 4 to 5 incubators in different regions, and you will need to build programs together. So this could be a good incentive as well.
Well, I will take a mental note, actually. I'll take a mental note. And just a note also, because probably not everyone knows about it. So Maria just mentioned about RNI, that is the national network of incubators in Portugal. So right now on that network, there are 138 incubators. So there are incubators spread across all over the country and islands. So yeah, there are a lot of incubators that can support companies. Basically, that's my take. So now to continue our discussion. So I can see some movements in Lisbon. Okay, Mike, my next question is for you. So let's go back and talk about money again. So at SIM conference in the beginning of May, you did a very clear and straightforward presentation. And I would like to go back to that presentation and ask you actually how incubators can be between startups and investors, in the sense that how can incubators mediate the conversation between the two? Can they help? What should they do?
Limited basis. So I think there's sort of 3 things generally that incubators, regardless of their business model, can do. The first one is sort of very clear-eyed education for the entrepreneurs about how different kinds of investors work and think, what the actual process of fundraising is, negotiation skills. Obviously there's pitching skills, but there's sort of understanding that raising funds is a B2B sales process that the CEO of a company has to master if they hope to ever get anywhere. So that kind of deep training, and then the best practices about, how do you manage an investor CRM? How do you manage a board? All of these things are things that if the entrepreneurs are forewarned, they're forearmed. Right? And it's not building product, and it's not hiring people, it's learning a customer base which is different from your actual customer base. It's the customer base for your equity that works in this industry that most entrepreneurs don't know anything about, but they need to learn if they want to be successful. By the same token, with education, and this sort of goes to the last point as well, is I think incubators need to do a much better job educating angel investors and folks that haven't been involved with startups, because there is money around. But if an angel who comes out of some old family business says, sure, I'm going to give you $500,000, but I want 50% of your company, which happens all the time, that company will never raise another dime again, right? Because they have what we call a polluted term or cap table. And so educating investors about how to get involved and what the growth of startups looks like and how that's different from other kinds of startups is another important thing. The second big thing is, Startup Portugal as a network with 152, was that the number? 138, sorry, I'm expanding the numbers already. Yeah, well, I don't know, it's been 30 minutes, maybe there's more. You're effectively aggregating all startup across Portugal and leveraging that to get attention from the outside is really important. So SIM was, the conference was really cool because I was able to call a couple of my colleagues from abroad and say, in 2 days, you're going to see every interesting startup in Portugal, and you're going to meet the relationships that are going to last for a lifetime. get to town. And so, you know, I know that Startup Portugal flew a number of investors from abroad to participate in the conference, and I think that's huge leverage for the community. And then the third one is, I don't want any incubator, and this kind of goes to what you were saying about verticals, to represent the value of helping startups with sales. Like, there is nothing more powerful that an incubator manager could say to an investor than, you know, we just hosted a demo day for 20 manufacturing companies, and this startup walked out of there with 5 POCs. Like, every investor is going to go right to that startup, right? And as the incubator, you have the power to curate those kinds of relationships that actually make a difference in the value, the growth of the company. So those are the 3 things that I think incubators can do: teaching, aggregating demand to sort of bring in the outside, and being very intentional about helping the companies with go-to-market.
Thank you. As always, very clear. Okay, Gilles. So now I would like to ask you about scale-ups. So basically, Portugal has fostered for the last years, it has fostered the development of early-stage startups. But now, and Lisbon is doing that, we are basically trying to build a scale-ups nation, to quote what has been said in Lisbon. And actually, just to take a note here for those that don't know this, so there is also this study from, I will say, just for you to know the source, from Stanford University, that basically says that actually 10% of the high impact startups actually have 90% of the economic impact. So basically, we are talking about scale-ups. Scale-ups are the ones that actually bring money to the country. Let's put it this way. So, and now Portugal wants to develop more scale-ups. We have a lot of startups, but we lose them on a 5 years period, 5, 7. So we want more scale-ups. How can you do this? This is the question. How can you do this? I know that you are doing this already, but what can you add to this? What can you, I don't know, bring to the discussion about this?
As I said earlier, we have, and you also summarized, we have a high number of startups on the early stage. I think the shift towards a scale-up or to a growth stage is quite significant. So obviously you need funds, you need a product with potential that can be expanded abroad, but also the skills of the senior team change completely. I think that if you look at the chart of growth, there's this hockey stick, and that point of the hockey stick that changes from development towards growth, it's a completely completely different set of skills. Some founders are skillful enough to be able to do that transition well and create a team that is strong towards scaling up, but most often that's not the case. I think that's a number of do's and don'ts that can be explained and can be, so based on use cases, based on past experience of others, that can be explained, and founders can avoid common pitfalls, can understand what are the challenges, can identify better the opportunities, and can have a higher chance of success on that change, which is probably, and I'm not a founder, but here Afonso can tell, but can be probably, I think, one of the most difficult transitions in terms of a founder. So on these, we created a program that tries to address exactly that. So what are the areas, the modules, the skills that the senior team, and again, it's not the founder anymore, just the founder anymore, it's the senior team as a whole, that they need to get to know. One example, for instance, is in terms of leadership, talent attraction, talent retention, creating a culture, transitioning a startup from 10, 20, 30 staff to 100 plus staff. This takes a lot of different skills. So bringing that knowledge to the scale-ups, thinking about what markets to go next, how to structure a sales team, an international sales team, how to prepare for the next rounds, and the rounds, as they grow in size, they also grow in terms of the demand and the due diligence that is around that. What mistakes can we do on the cap table that we can avoid, so later on it's not a problem when raising larger rounds. So there's a number of information that is available. So it is not a textbook, obviously, each case is a case, but this information can be very helpful to avoid founders and the senior team to do typical mistakes. So we cannot avoid everything. There's always a very high level of uncertainty and decision making that obviously the startup needs to do, but it can be much better prepared. So if we are able to give those skills, if we are able to bring a number of mentors that can advise during this phase, if you are able to bring the international connections so that when they decide to go to the US or they go to Brazil or to Spain, they don't go blind, they don't look at it without any support. All of this starts creating a scaling up community. Together then, as we start also having more cohorts and more editions, we start creating then a proper community that itself starts helping each other. So then the incubator is not needed anymore because that community is already supporting each other. And that's also what we are seeing. Now we are already with 32 scale-ups, and now we keep seeing, without our involvement, them supporting each other in all the ways possible. So that is our role, and that's what we believe. And again, now just to finalize, going back to the size of the market, obviously it would be very difficult to have 138 scale-ups programs. That definitely we don't have yet. Hopefully in the future we would have for 2, 3, but we don't have much many startups that are on this stage and that would like to get supported. So we need, again, back to Maria's point, to work together and start having programs that can aggregate. With our program, we try to aggregate as much as possible, but there is a lot of room to improve.
Yeah, and I will take that and go to Maria again to actually mention that we have 138 incubators in Portugal, but all of them are different, of course, but there are incubators that incubate innovative companies, but they do not fit in the legal definition of startups. So my question is, and the metrics, the success metrics of those incubators are different from the success metrics of the incubators that incubate startups as by definition. So how can we leverage or take advantage of all these type of incubators and work together to leverage the ecosystem?
So I think UPTech is one of those types of incubators. So a little bit of an advertisement right now. So we support around 200 projects per year at UPTech. And we do it in all fields of knowledge. This means that we also support what we call impact projects and creative and cultural industries. Right now, you are located at one of our buildings, UPTech Baixa, that is mostly, the most of the projects located here are in digital media, architecture, design, so the creative and cultural industries, and some in terms of impact. And for us, this is extremely important. I agree with you, we need different metrics, but the fact is, if we want to build an ecosystem, and that's what we are trying to do right now, we need it to be diverse, and it needs to be as well more resilient. And this can only happen if you have this different array of projects that also can collaborate between themselves. And this means a lot of cross-fertilization of ideas. So for us, the criteria is it needs to be innovative, but it could be in different fields. And going back to your question in terms of metrics, yes, I think it would be great to see, and the startup national reports, other metrics that not, the scale of growth or investment raised, but also the number of jobs created. And this is direct and indirect jobs, because some of these working in, I would say, in the creative industries and organizing events, they have a lot of collaboration. And this doesn't mean that they have a big team, but they spread a lot in terms of the wealth and the impact they may have in the region. So this means also other indicators that have to do with the impact they have in the communities. And that being said, besides the metrics, we need to understand that our ecosystem, to be a little bit more mature, it also needs different types of incentives. And right now, in terms of what this, we call them startups as well, but this business, innovative business, can expect, it's very difficult to raise investment from typical VCs. There is some impact investment, but it's still too short. And then if we are talking about impact business that are trying to change some aspects, some, I would say, critical issues in terms of society, then you cannot expect them to have revenues, because this will jeopardize what they are doing in terms of mission. And at the same time, if you're talking about artistic, I would say, endeavors, it's too risky for some of the investors to be there. So there needs to be grant, there needs to be some sort of proof of concept that enables them to as well growth. And then we need to think about their survival rate over time. Are they going to be sustainable or not?
Yeah, so again, we go back to collaboration again. Yeah, if you collaborate more, then all these kind of issues will be not go down to zero, but we can help each other more. Yeah. So again, go back to Lisbon and ask Afonso. So basically, now I will ask you, how can a startup give back to an incubator? So you had the experience of, I don't know, grow with the incubator. So the incubator gave you a lot of tools to grow the startup. So now how can you go back to the incubator and actually help the ecosystem and help the community within the incubator?
Well, I would say mostly two things. So A is to be successful, because if you are successful, then for the incubator it's going to be great to say, hey, we had this company, right? And so I would say A is make sure the company you are building is a great one, because then the incubator in 5 years can tell everyone, hey, this company was here, right? And what everyone likes is like logos and everything. And so I would say that number one is be focused on your business and like make sure you are successful. And then this incubator will be really proud to say your name wherever they go. And the second thing is, depends on the type of incubator, right? But I would say it's time. And sometimes it's really hard to give time to like go to this kind of events, or to like give some mentorship, or to go to like events, just be there even if not talking, right? Because the daily, you have like as an entrepreneur, there's a daily routine that is super intense, right? So like today I woke up at 6:30, I had a meeting at 7:30. Now after here I'm flying to London. Tomorrow I have a meeting at 9 in London. Then I need to be on Friday back, you know, and so this is super intense, right? And so sometimes it's hard then to really give back in terms of time, but I would say that giving time is for sure something that that is something that the entrepreneurs should definitely do. But at least for me, and this is something that I think a lot, is I believe that the best thing I can give to the Portuguese ecosystem is to build great companies, right? And so this is A. Then I can also invest some time helping and everything, but I would say, I don't know if you agree, Gilles, but I would say it's the best way to do it.
And if I can add,
Great.
I think we
Yeah,
have
sure. Go ahead.
fortunate in Portugal. I think we have, in one hand, an ecosystem that is the give back is part of the day to day. I think that it's very collaborative. There's the more senior founders, they invest time, and we see this in our program. So we are always very lucky to bring very senior profiles, people that did incredibly well with their past in their past in a startup, to give back in terms of teaching, in terms of sharing their experiences. And I think that's something that Portugal is quite unique, and it immediately feels like a family. And second is in terms of the expat network, and here I also need to thank Mike. We have a community that is also very keen to participate and to be involved, and so we have a very good setup for startups to get the right support, to get the right advice. So, and that's also where incubators can play an important role, because we have these networks and we are able to provide those networks to especially to first-time founders, not serial founders as Afonso, but to first-time founders that they don't know many people, and we are able to bring those people to help each one of these founders.
Thank you, Afonso.
I would add, that coming from the outside, I'm not going to say it's unique, but it is obviously a value to try and help the other people in the ecosystem. And that's like one of the things that when I first decided to move here, it's because I felt that, right? That I could, I'm a little different place in my career than you, but I spend a lot of time and energy trying to give back wherever it is that I am or go, because I've had a lot of blessings, and the fact that I experienced that when I first got here is evident, right? And I see it every day. It's terrific.
Great. Mike, so now I would like to ask you if there is any typical healthy relationship between incubators and startups. Do they have, like, what are the adjectives or that you would add to this?
I will tell you, and if you can't tell, like, we got the questions ahead of time, so we got to think about some of this stuff, and it was a very interesting question of what does healthy incubator investor relationships look like, and it's down to each individual relationship. But what I can share with you what I've seen of incubators that have done better, whether that's a specific incubator or how Startup Nation, right, Israel takes care of it, or how Startup Chile takes care of it, these kinds of things. So there's really three things. The first one is an absolutely remarkable investor CRM, right? Down to the level of the CRM knows who that investor invested in, what they're interested in, when their wife's birthday is, what their dog's name, like really great detailed data. Because otherwise, whatever's going to happen next, the matching, can't possibly scale and still retain some richness. So that's the first thing. The second thing is whoever is playing that role of introducing between startup and investor has to be an absolute master of how investing works. Like, it's wonderful that some MBA student is going to be the introducer, that they have a chance to learn. But if you really wanted to add value, then the person doing the introducing has to have raised money before, has to have invested money before, has to understand how to tell the potential investor, no, asking for 50% is dumb, or the entrepreneur asking for a 20 million valuation when you have no customers is dumb. Like, there has to be someone that actually can play that role. And then the third thing is, hang on, I took my notes. Which goes to the example that I just gave, but no dumb cap table moves. Because again, nothing will pollute your company from being able to raise money again, to raise money internationally, to scale, than some really easily avoidable situation with who you take money from and what valuation. So great CRM, true expertise in raising money, and no dumb cap table moves.
Thank you, Mike. So now we go for the last question before we open for discussion with the audience. So this question is to Maria and Jill, and then I would like also to ask Mike and Afonso for further insights. So now I would like to zoom out to Europe. So Portugal or Europe do not have a big tech company like Google or Amazon. And a lot of European startups are migrating to the US, basically looking for more money, more ways to grow. So now my question is, or we have been talking about what incubators can do, but what can we demand? How can influence regulators to develop more initiatives, more legislation that impact this, that could actually help grow Google-like company here in Europe? Maybe I will start here with Maria.
So it's a difficult question, and I thought a little bit about this as well as we don't, when we think about Europe and the market that we have at European level, even with European Commission trying to facilitate some of these on mobility of goods and people, it's a very fragmented market. And that's one of the issues. I think we have more than 80 VAT systems operating in the different countries. So whenever you think about easiness of doing business, this comes into play. But then again, I think it's also a little bit misleading because it's true we don't have at European level this huge, I would say, giant digital technology companies, but we do have some very strong fields of knowledge and companies like in the pharma sector, the advanced manufacturing sector, even the luxury, I would say, and automotive sector. So one thing is maybe we could take more advantage of this connection with, I would say, an older, more traditional industry in some cases that's evolving a lot and that's investing a lot in R&D. And true, we are lagging behind in terms of what is known to be the competitive scene in some fields like genomics, for sure, artificial intelligence. But then again, I think that we need to be aware of other initiatives that already are taking place, like the Digital Markets Act, that's trying to leverage the field for our startups. So that being said, and going back to your question, I'm not sure how much incubators could do regarding this specific issue, because bottom line, I think it all comes to having a large pool of highly educated people, so talent, and a lot of funding available, so money. And I think Portugal specifically is still lacking both. So what would be the politically correct answer? Saying yes, incubators could support in translating the needs of startups and doing some lobby with the government regarding different incentives like tax incentives, or even what happened with the startup law, or easiness to attract foreign talent and retain talent in Portugal. That I think we could do. Would this really enable the creation of a tech giant like Google? Probably not. But then we can try to reverse the game a little bit. And why not try to attract them to generate value in our specific countries? At least in UPTech, it's part of the strategy for us to attract large corporations to come here and also establish here in terms of doing business, because we know there are going to be, outliers that are going to generate more wealth and more opportunities for the startups because of that. True that they also compete for talent. So, it's a difficult balance.
Yeah, thank you. They are frozen. Okay, sorry, Jill, you just froze for 2 seconds, but now we can go ahead.
So, obviously, I agree with Maria. I think that we cannot, at least in the short term, expect startups and scale-ups to remain here and go global. I think we don't have the setup that allows a global unicorn, Portuguese unicorn, to be based in Portugal, or international ones to move to Portugal. but we do get a lot of benefit in terms of jobs creation, investment. All the Portuguese unicorns end up having very significant operations in Portugal. A number of international unicorns have also created significant operational hubs in Portugal. So we do benefit anyways, and we have a good setup to attract talent and to attract jobs and to attract investments. But going then to the question of Europe versus the US, I think we lag a lot behind, and I think it's good for us to understand that in order to also put the right pressure in terms on the areas that we need to evolve. And I would say 4 different areas just as an example. First, in terms of the education, I think that our education is still very traditional, very oriented towards having a corporate career. I speak with a number of my friends from the US. They all say that at the age of 10, they're already discussing business ideas with their parents at dinner. That's a mindset that we don't have, and we need to work at the school level, at the universities level, in order to change this mindset. I think one thing that we are now trying to do, and we have created now a new focus area that is the youth entrepreneurship. We are trying to make students understand that university is a great way to innovate. So if you try to set up your business and it goes well, you created your own job and your own career. If it doesn't go well, you have still exactly the same opportunities ahead of you. So how can we have, if each student ends up exploring one idea, you can think about the potential of these in terms of new ideas and new potential businesses. The second is in terms of investigation, and I think here is a problem across all Europe, which the best KPI to look at is the number of patents. I think that Europe as a whole is significantly less than US, China, and Japan, which are the top 3 countries. And just to give an example, Portugal, I think last year was around 350 new patents. If we look at commercially viable patents, probably significantly less. Huawei alone as a company, they had 3,500 patents last year. So it's a completely different scale. And if we don't have investigation, obviously it's also difficult to have innovation. So that's number 2. Then number 3 is in terms of regulation. There's this meme that I'm sure many of you have seen that says that US innovates, China imitates, and Europe regulates. I think that's still a bit what we do. So I think as a European Union, we need to be able to provide a ground where innovation is allowed to flourish. I think we probably start regulating some areas too early versus other markets, and although it might seem that makes sense, the problem is that the other areas don't, and therefore it creates an unfair disadvantage or unfair advantage for the other countries. And that's number 3. And then number 4 is in terms of the bureaucracy. I think that's something that we still lag in Portugal and probably in other countries I'm less familiar with, is the efficiency of the justice, efficiency, how the different channels work. So obviously large investors, if they are very comfortable with US law, they would not be comfortable with the Portuguese law, and therefore they would put pressure for the startups to eventually move their headquarters there, because that's where they feel safe as an investor, and how they feel that the balance between powers is better positioned. So just to summarize, with these 4 areas in terms of education, investigation, regulation, and investment, and bureaucracy, we really need to be able at the European level to, so let me step back a bit. And like Maria, I think incubators can play a role. I think if we incubators, and we can really represent the sector, so if we are able to come together, and if we are able to structure a number of initiatives that would help Europe moving forward, we would probably be able to start shaping up that path.
I would just add one thing, because
I
do believe this, what I'm going to say might generate some controversy, but I think that in Europe we also lack the culture of grinding, of working really hard. And I think that if we compare, for example, with the US, you go there and you want to schedule a meeting, you can have the meeting on a Saturday, on a Sunday, you can have the meeting at 7 a.m. People will find a spot, and you like making things happen, and making things happen fast is really like a top criteria for people who are in this kind of ecosystem, right? And what I feel in Europe is that it's completely different, right? For example, I had this guy that joined the team, and I scheduled a call at 1, and he said me, it's lunchtime. And I said, what the fuck? I don't care about your lunchtime, you know, like, let's meet at 1 and you have lunch at 2, or you have lunch at 12, or you don't even have lunch, you know? No, I'm joking, but the thing is, or you have lunch during the meeting, you know, like, I don't care. But I think that this culture of like, that work-life balance is a holy grail, and that this is what's going to generate happiness and everything. I believe that this is something that is really also impeding some of our companies then to compete with others, right? Because then, like, people that want to work hard, then people say, hey, you should stop, take care of the burnout, everyone around you is going to burn out, you know? And I don't believe in this. Like, I think you need to take, like, it's important to look at your health and everything, of course, but working, I like to work, you know? So if you ask me if at 10 p.m. I prefer to watch a Netflix series, like, I prefer to work, you know? And I think that in Europe, we are lacking a bit this, that working can be great, work can generate some joy, and I think this is also something that we need to change, and we need to have more this culture of grinding. And actually, just to add, this guy that started work with me and said this of the lunchtime, like 1 week ago, came to me and said, hey man, I'm working every day now, like 14 hours, and I'm happier than ever, you know? And I was like, what? Why? Because now I feel that I'm having an impact, and before I was just working, right? And so I also think that this change of culture is something that we need to do. Of course, take care of burnouts and everything. But well, I said I was going to generate some controversy.
Yeah, $1 billion takes care of a lot of burnout, doesn't it? I'll add just a few observations. I think, you know, what Afonso just shared is the way that I look at it is a bit about ambition and the willingness to sacrifice to achieve that ambition. And certainly, like, I was just at a conference of 100 VCs and investors into VCs, all European, most of them had some kind of international experience, and they recognized that what's the gap between Europe and other places, Israel, the US, is that ambition and the willingness to grind. So celebrating ambition, making sure that as incubators, you put energy behind and helping those folks that, you know, Tiago and Christina never said, I want to be the best customer service software in Portugal, right? They want to be the best in the world, and good people from around the world want to work with that kind of ambition. The second thing, also playing off your point, is as incubators or as members of the support infrastructure for startups, and I include angels and I include VCs and even some of the law firms, like the point to the policymakers should be, we follow the capital. We put our energy into those companies that are going to create the most jobs from here. We have great talent, and great talent will ultimately follow the best. So if you're asking us as folks who may benefit or may implement some of the policy, what we actually think, we, meaning incubators, VCs, etc., we know that we can create that flywheel by just focusing on the best and keep on going, right? And it may be the best filmmaker, right? Or the best artist, but people that want to be the best attract the best.
We end great. Focus, guys. Okay, so the team is telling me that we are right on time. I think we have time for questions. Do we have? Okay, we have So here in Porto, does anyone have a question? Okay, good.
Hi, thank you all. Thank you for the panel and for the opportunity to have you talking about incubators. So, as part of an innovation team in a corporate, I would like, because Jill mentioned that the involvement of the stakeholders are quite important for the startup. So the academia, the corporate world, and the investors. So what do you expect from a corporate? What do you believe where we can be best when relating with some of the startups? Do you want us to help them piloting? Give me some examples, because we are starting to work with some startups. We have different collaboration models, but of course you have the best practices already, so please let us know.
A couple, I'm sure you guys all have it too. But for background, I taught corporate innovation at UC Berkeley and corporate venture capital at Stanford, and I sit on the investment committee for a big bank's corporate fund. And I would say really the most important thing that a corporate needs to do is the internal training work, right, with the teams who are ultimately going to touch the startups, that if you try and make your bonus on what this startup builds, you will kill the share price in the future of this company, right? When a big company, by accident or by intent, steals an entrepreneur's time or IP, not only does it harm that company, but it also harms the startup. It also harms the company overall. So that internal cultural training is really, really hard, but that's the number one thing that they can do. My favorite story about the CVC, where I sit on the investment committee, when COVID happened, the bankers came to, there's 3 real VCs who are part of this investment committee, and the bankers came to us and said, well, what should we do? Should we bridge our companies? Should we just go invest in some low valuation deals? And we said, no, stop investing, go back into the bank and find more revenue for our portfolio companies. And as a blessing, they did it for every single one of our companies. And as a result of that, a bunch of other bank customers also started buying more from these companies. So understand that as a partner to an entrepreneur, to a founder, there's things that you can get from it, and there's things that you should be giving to it, and they don't look anything like what investors give, right? They're your leverage, your brand, right? Your attention, both in terms of what you can teach them and what you can learn from them, because it helps entrepreneurs refine when they have to learn to pitch to big companies. So those are like the 2 things. One is the internal training, and if you can't do that, don't even start. And then the second one is understanding that you have a different set of assets to bring to a partnership, and being very clear on what those are and what the entrepreneur needs to give in return for those.
I would just add that from our experience, I think that corporate can also be great advisors to us. I think that at the end of the day, we are incubating or accelerating startups in order for them to be successful. So we always look into our corporate partners and to let us know how we can also evolve and how we can improve. And on this, I think Sograp, is a great example on a company that really is looking towards how to look for innovation, how that innovation can be incorporated inside. And the most successful examples that I have seen are the ones that the innovation team is really able to connect the startups with the right people inside the organization, and those people that are typically the business people, they do understand the value of the startups, because typically there's always a bit of a challenge that one thing are the KPIs of sales and so on, and the other are incorporating a new technology or a new innovation. So being able to do that bridge is can be quite a challenge. And I think here is a role that corporate companies need to be able to grasp in order to take advantage. And another thing is that the moment that a corporate company sees 1, 2, 3 startups that they do believe has the potential to grow, really invest in that partnership. So nothing better than for an investor to say that, look, I have Sograp as a partner and all my product is going to be acquired by them for the next 2 years because they truly believe in my product. So that's, I'm not an investor, both of you probably would have a better understanding, but knowing that there is an emotional, or there is an investment from the corporate, not in money, but in terms of the business model for a startup, that can be very helpful for the startup. And then also can bring significant results to the corporate company as well as the startup evolves.
I don't have much to add, and we already spoke a little bit about this, so I don't think I'm going to bring you any news, but I would say that there are 2 essential things for startups. One of them, they want to get revenues, they want to get clients. And sometimes for them, it's hard to get the first client, the one that will give them reputation and open some doors. So that's, I would say, an amazing thing that a corporate that wants to invest more in startups could do. We could call it piloting, we could call it any other thing, but really it's to get that first customer and to say, hey, we worked with them and it was great. And then it's to challenge them. And that's why we organize so much what we call the bridging events. It's to bring real challenges of the concrete challenge of corporates for the startups to look at. It's not that they are going to, I don't know the word, the contrary of focus. We don't want them to lose focus in what they are developing, the product and the service, but we want them to be aware of what is the functioning of the real market. And Gilles talked about R&D investigation, and we have a lot of startups coming from researchers. And most of the times, what they hate doing is validating. They really like the product, the technology, but they don't have any idea how the market would react to it because they are so into developing and perfectioning all the features that the technology is going to have that they forget that sometimes they won't have any clients. So bringing this real world experience that you have and bringing all the network also as well that you have in terms of distribution channels, in terms of other clients and suppliers, it's, I would say, game-changing for a startup.
Great, thank you. So we have a question in Lisbon, I guess. Yeah, okay, great.
You can hear me, okay. First, I want to say some suggestions based on what's mentioned. I think in terms of helping entrepreneurs, one good thing is, for example, providing knowledge that is available on Masterclass. For example, Chris Voss, techniques and negotiation techniques, or Mark Cuban, or Richard Branson, or Sarah Blakely. Those are resources that have tremendous insights that can be used, and if students on college or outside, even about, for example, Steve Blank or Eric Rice, it's information that is very useful. For example, Marty Kagan, via book Inspired, is very interesting for customer discovery and validation. And it's about picking up a bit of sweat equity, going in and interviewing people. Like in my field, I'm working on tourism, and I interview tourists to validate if it is what they are looking for and so on. But a more entity part that would be beneficial in terms of speed, it's like institutions. When we go, for example, I try to talk with DGPC and so on, and it's a lot of meetings, and I go to other entities like EGEAC and so on, and it takes time. And for technology doesn't wait. If I don't do, somebody else will do next month, and it's out there. So it's important on that. Also bringing an entrepreneurship with INPI, the institute that validates patents and registers that. I've made recently my first patent, and it was not a very difficult process. It took time, yeah. I had to learn a lot of things, but if that is embedded also in incubators and college and universities, it can be a very great value because I can have an idea, have a POC and so on, but somebody else can implement. But if I have a patent, I can leverage on that and have royalties on that and so on. So it becomes economical impact. Now, in terms of Portugal and sweat equity and so on, we have a mindset of exchanging time for money and not value for money. And it would be beneficial in high schools to bring the perspective of not focusing on a career that you get paid every end of the month, and try to grow in terms of mindset, financial literacy, that if we build something that solves real problems for the society, money is the byproduct. So also one thing that you mentioned, I think incubators and so on, and startups must not focus so much on money. Money must come from profits and so on. I know that some industries take time to grow and so on, the hockey stick perspective, but it would be more beneficial to know the basics in terms of customer discovery and validation. One question that I have is, in terms of being a master on investing, are we looking for a person that is on the level of Peter Thiel or Richard Branson, or someone lower?
My comment about incubators should have, no, I mean, and no incubator that I'm aware of in the world is going to get Peter Thiel, even ones that he owns. I'm talking about someone who has been through the process, preferably both sides, meaning they've been an entrepreneur that's had to raise some money, and maybe they've made some angel investments. Ideally further, but you know, has to understand the craft from both sides, and by virtue of that, have knowledge about how the process should go, and have empathy and knowledge to call bullshit when something's going wrong, right? But it has to be like true knowledge, not what they studied in a book or what they learned as a junior investment banker. They had to be in the middle of this stuff.
Would you like that? No. So, okay, then we will finish. We are just on time. The team is telling me just finish this. So thank you all. Thank you again, Afonso, Mike, and Jill, and Maria here. Thank you for sharing all your knowledge. Thank you all for coming. I think Madalena will. Sorry. Okay, Madalena is telling me to. Yeah, João, you are there. Okay, great. So João, go ahead.
So let's just give a big round of applause to our guests. I'm truly inspired with today's discussion. And just a quick note, now we will, here in Lisbon, move upstairs. Please follow Francisca, who is over there. Francisca, put your hand up, because today's networking will take place in a slightly different way. And that's it. On my side, over to you, Madalena. You're sounding really nice.
Okay, sorry. So we'll have some drinks here as well, over there. The space is not so big, so yeah. But we first would like to share Startup Portugal gratitude to all our partners. So thank you to Investors Portugal, Ferroviário, 351 Portuguese Startup Community, UPTEC, Porto City Council, Sograp, and Superboc Group. So let's gather over there and connect a bit. Thank you very much.
Thank you.